I want to start by saying I am not a religious person. I was raised Catholic, church every Sunday, rosary on the dashboard, a framed picture of the Last Supper above the dining table that I stared at for so many meals I could draw it from memory right now. My mother was devout in that quiet, unshakable way that some people are. She never pushed it on me. She just lived it and assumed I'd find my own way to the same place eventually. I didn't. By the time I was in my mid-20s, I had drifted completely. Not angry at the church, not traumatized by it, just indifferent. The way you drift away from a hometown. No single reason, just distance and time and a life that moved in a different direction. I tell you this because what I'm about to describe has nothing to do with faith. I'm not telling this story to convert anyone. I'm not telling it because I found God. I'm telling it because something happened to me 18 months ago that I've not been able to explain, and I need to stop carrying it alone. 18 months ago, I was living in a small apartment on the 3rd floor of a building that should have been condemned. Old radiators, drafty windows, a landlord who answered calls maybe one time in 3. I loved it anyway. It had a view of the street from the living room window, and I used to sit there on weekend mornings with coffee and watch people walk by. There's something about watching a street from 3 floors up. You see everything, and nobody sees you. My routine was simple. I worked from home, freelance translation work, mostly technical documents, nothing exciting. I woke up around 7, made coffee, sat at the window for maybe an hour, then worked until early afternoon. After that, I'd go for a walk, come back, make dinner, read, or watch something. Sleep. The same loop every day with minor variations. I was not unhappy. I was just quiet. I had been going through a difficult few months before this happened. Not catastrophically difficult, nothing dramatic, no crisis. Just that particular kind of tiredness that sets in when you've been alone too long and the days start blending into each other. My closest friend had moved abroad the previous year. My family was several hours away. I talked to people through screens and it wasn't the same. I was functioning fine on the outside and running on empty on the inside. I mention this because later I would wonder if it mattered, if the state I was in had something to do with what I saw. I still don't know the answer to that. It started small, the way these things apparently always do. 3 weeks before it happened, I started waking up at the same time every night, 3:14 a.m. exactly. Not approximately, exactly every single time. I know because I checked my phone every time it happened. I would just open my eyes, fully awake, the way you wake up when a noise stops rather than starts. The apartment silent, the street outside quiet, nothing specific that woke me, just awake. I'd lie there for a few minutes and then fall back asleep. It happened 4 nights in a row and then stopped for a week and then started again. I Googled it eventually. The internet told me it was cortisol cycles or anxiety or the building settling. I accepted one of those explanations and stopped thinking about it. The second thing was the smell. I have no better word for it than clean. Not clean like soap or detergent. Clean like air after rain. Like something freshly made. It would appear in the apartment for maybe 30 seconds and then disappear. Always in the early morning. Always after one of those 3:14 a.m. wake-ups. I checked for gas leaks. I checked the ventilation. I asked my neighbor if she'd started using a new diffuser. She looked at me like I'd asked her something strange and said no. The third thing was the light. My bedroom had a window that faced the building across the alley, maybe 4 meters away. No direct sunlight, just ambient light. Normal. I had lived in that room for 2 years, and I knew exactly what it looked like at every hour. One morning I woke up and the room was wrong. Not dark wrong, light wrong. There was a quality to the light coming through the window that I can't describe accurately. Warmer than it should have been. More present, like the light had weight to it, like it came from somewhere closer than the sun. I lay there for a long time just looking at it. Then the quality changed, and it was just regular morning light again. I told myself I'd been half asleep. Told myself the eye does strange things between sleep and waking. I got up and made coffee and sat at the window and watched the street, and the day was completely normal. The night it happened was a Tuesday in late October. I had been working late, a long technical document about infrastructure safety, the kind of thing that makes your eyes go flat after a few hours. By 11 p.m., I was done. I closed the laptop, made tea, sat on the couch for a while doing nothing in particular. Around midnight, I went to bed. I fell asleep quickly. No trouble. No 3:44 a.m. wake up that night. No strange light, nothing. Just sleep. I don't know what time it was when I woke up. I didn't check my phone. I just opened my eyes and looked at the ceiling, and the room was full of that light again. That warm, weighted light that came from somewhere closer than it should. I sat up. It was standing in the corner of the room. I want to be careful about how I describe this because I have thought about it every day for 18 months, and I still don't have clean language for it. Every word I choose feels either too much or not enough. It was tall, taller than the ceiling should have allowed, though I couldn't explain how that was possible. It was dressed in white, robes, I suppose, long and still, fabric that didn't move even though I could feel air in the room. The white of them was the source of the light, not reflecting light, generating it. A cold, warm, impossible light that filled the room without casting shadows the way normal light does. I could see its body clearly, the shape of it, the proportions, the way it stood, completely still, hands at its sides, facing me. Where its face should have been there was nothing. Not darkness exactly, not a shadow, something that the light couldn't reach. An absence, a void, the shape of a face that my eyes kept sliding off of every time I tried to look directly at it. I would focus on where the face should be, and my gaze would move away before I understood why, the way your eyes move away from something painful before the pain registers. I sat there in my bed and I didn't move, and I didn't make a sound, and then it spoke. I say spoke. There was no sound. Nothing moved, but something arrived in my head the way meaning arrives when you read a word, not heard, not seen, just suddenly there, fully formed. It said, worship. Just that, one word. Not a request, not an invitation, a statement of what I was supposed to do, delivered with an authority so complete it had no need to ask. I didn't move. It said it again, same way, same authority. Worship. And I sat there in my bed at whatever hour it was in late October in my drafty third-floor apartment, and I felt something I can only describe as the opposite of peace. Not fear exactly. Something older than fear. Something the body knows before the mind does. I looked at it for a long time. And then I looked down. I don't know why I looked down. I wasn't thinking. My eyes just moved the way they sometimes move when something is pulling at the edge of your attention and you finally give into it. I looked at its feet. They were visible below the hem of the white robes, and they were wrong in a way that the rest of it wasn't. Everything else, the robes, the stillness, the light, even the void where the face should have been, had a quality of something made, something intended, something that wanted to appear a specific way and had succeeded. The feet were different. Dark, not shadow dark. The dark of something that had been somewhere light does not go. Cracked and dry the way ground gets in a long drought. Veins running up from them into the white of the robes like roots going into soil. The nails long and wrong. The toes slightly too many. The rest of it had been built to be looked at. The feet were what it actually was. I looked at those feet, and the word it had put in my head, worship, sat there, and I felt the full weight of what it was asking and what it was. And I understood that those two things were not the same. I don't remember it leaving. I remember looking at the feet, and then I remember the room being empty, and the light being gone, and the apartment being dark and ordinary in the way it always was. My tea mug still on the nightstand, my phone face down beside it, the sound of the street outside starting to come back as the morning started somewhere out there. I sat in my bed until daylight. I called my friend, the one who had moved abroad, at 6 a.m. her time. She picked up, irritated, asking what was wrong. I tried to explain what I'd seen. She was quiet for a long time after I finished. Then she said, "You sound like you're describing something from my grandmother's Bible." I asked what she meant. She said there was a word her grandmother used, an old word from her tradition for things that appear in the form of holy things. Things that wear the right clothes and say the right words, but cannot maintain the disguise completely. Things that ask for worship, because worship gives them something they need. Her grandmother's word for them translated roughly as the almost holy. I asked her what her grandmother said to do if you saw one. My friend was quiet again. Then she said, don't answer it. She said, whatever it asks, don't answer. And she said, whatever you do, she stopped. What? I said. She said, look at the feet. I have not seen it again. The 3:14 a.m. wake-up stopped. The smell stopped. The light never came back. I moved out of that apartment 4 months later, not because of what happened. I told myself it was because of the landlord, the drafts, the radiators. I told myself a lot of things. I sleep with the lights on now. Not every light, just the small one on the nightstand. Just enough that if I open my eyes at 3:14 a.m. in the morning, I can see every corner of the room clearly. All 4 of them. I've thought about my friend's grandmother's word a lot in the 18 months since. The almost holy. What bothers me, what I keep coming back to, is the word almost. Not unholy, not false, almost. Which implies it got close. Which implies there is a version of what it was trying to appear as that is real. Which implies the thing in my room that night was a copy of something. I don't know what the original looks like. I'm not sure I want to. But sometimes at night, in that specific stillness just before sleep, I think about the feet. And I think about how the rest of it was so carefully made. And I wonder why it didn't bother to finish, whether it couldn't, or whether it just didn't think I'd look down.